Go. Okay, I'm just letting everybody in.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning again, Frankie.
Morning again, Joy.
Oh God.
Right, I think that's everybody in at the moment, but I'll let anyone else that comes in, I'll let them in as they come.
I'll just send a little message on it. Oh, chat.
Okay, it's just gone 10. Are we ready to go?
Yep.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you. Nice to see a nice group of people. I'm not sure whether there's anybody who hasn't attended before, but welcome anyway. I'd like to let you know that we are recording this session. We've been asked to do a recording. So if you do not want to be seen on this recording, can you please switch off your video so that so you have your privacy if you need it. Okay. I think we're raring to go then. So is there anybody that wants to say who they are? I mean, there might be new people that do not want to say who they are, but if there's anybody that is new and would like to talk to us, then I think that would be good. I'd just like to say that if you don't know, I'm Frankie Webb. I'm chair of the CSP and have been for many years. And we've got members of the group here. So if there's anybody that would like to introduce themselves, then please say before we go on. It's safe doing a great big round robin.
Yeah, I could maybe introduce myself, Frankie.
Oh, it's my lovely friend on here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I forgot you could hear me.
Sean is everybody's lovely friend, isn't he?
Sorry.
Yeah, should I say? Yeah. I'm. My name's Sean Gray. I'm an EFT practitioner, emotional freedom technique, and I was a therapist at Breast Cancer Haven in Wessex whilst it was there, and I know Jackie. So I spoke with her, and I'd just sort of like to join the meeting just to sort of see what's going on, really. I suppose, see if I can help in any way.
Welcome, lovely to see you.
Morning. I'm Michelle Urry for the Art Cancer Charity. I deal mainly in the finance and then the admin side of things. You probably, if you're around the hospital, you will see me in and out of the art because that's where we used to have an office and now based in the office in the radiotherapy department. And I just thought it would join as we're sort of moving along now with the new sort of well-being side of things. So it's nice to meet you all.
Good morning. My name's Rebecca Minton, and I'm a cancer nurse specialist along with Suzanne, who's also on the call. We've worked in and around Basingstoke as kind of cancer nurses for many years, and now we work for a cancer support company called Reframe. And been having discussions with the lovely Eileen, and we have obviously joined today just to kind of see what the CSP is all about, and just to kind of see where we can help really as well and see what you guys offer.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning. Could I just quickly say I'm Eileen Stronach and I'm Vice Chair of Cancer Services Partnership. If at any time you want any questions or anything, do pop it in the chat box. And if you'd like to give us any feedback about the meeting or you would like to join us at Cancer Services Partnership, do contact me at any time. I'll pop my personal email in the chat box, and of course you can contact us through the website. And I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
Morning, my name is Louise. I work for Basingstoke Voluntary Action, and part of my role as a sector support officer is to support all of your organisations. I know I've spoken with Frankie a number of times So any help you need with your organisations promoting, so obviously this month is cervical cancer awareness month, and I have really struggled to find an organisation or a group that actually focuses on that particular cancer. So it's been difficult to try and publicise that. If anybody is aware of anything, I mean, I know I've made a few phone calls to some of you, but if you do know anything, just let me know. If you have any events going on, please let me know. We can promote those, publicise those for you. Anything at all, any support that your organisations need, volunteers, funding, please give me a shout. Nice to meet you all.
Lovely. Thank you, Louise, and thank you for your ongoing support. It's really appreciated. Okay, are we happy to move on now? Right.
Sorry, Frankie. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Paula.
Hello, Paula.
Hi. So I work at Hampshire Hospitals. I'm Macmillan Health Information Manager, and I'm also Trust Lead for the production of patient information publications. I just wanted to quickly say, Louise, Joe's Trust is...
Yes, I have tried. I have actually been in touch with them, had nothing back yet.
Oh, that's odd. If you put yourself on their mailing list,
okay,
you should be able to get stuff from them very regularly, because my inbox is always flooded with stuff from various times of the year.
Oh no, that's really helpful, Paula. Thank you. I'll give it another go.
No worries.
Frankie, is it right if I quickly say hello to everybody as well?
Of course.
I think I probably know most of you, but my name's Jana Jeffrey. I am the Macmillan Supportive Care Lead here for Cancer Services, covering the whole of Hampshire hospitals. So if I haven't met you, I think Louise, your name was on my list, and I don't think we've actually had a conversation. So perhaps
I don't think we have, but nice to meet you.
You too, but you know, feel free to get in touch. Eileen and Frankie and everyone have got my contact details. I can put them in the chat as well.
Perfect, so. Lovely, thank you.
Okay, well, I'd like to start off with Edit, who is going to update us on the HHFT and cancer services. And lovely to see you, Edit. Would you like to give us an update?
Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you may be aware that the chemo unit now has started its services in Winchester as well. So we are still waiting for some chairs to be delivered for the patients. We are slowly but surely moving some treatments back, but it takes a little bit of longer time than we originally thought. But it has got its own challenges, but we are trying to offer the possibility to everybody to go and attend the treatment unit where it is closer to their home. So bear with us on this, and then hopefully we will get there soon. The other update is about the Wessex ward as the inpatient ward. So it seems that there are talks about, we currently based on the Candover private patient ward. We have got 7 beds at the moment, 7 inpatient beds, but we can flex up. That's regarding obviously the nursing staff, and also it depends on, you know, sharing the ward with the private patients. We can flex up to 11 beds, and whether we have got 11 patients to come in to the hospital or not having treatment or just being unwell, that we can use 11 beds, which we are established for. So the Wessex ward on F floor is used to have 11 beds as well. Other updates. What else can I say? So the first in Basingstoke, I think it is working really well. So we are also trying to facilitate some blood transfusions on both units now as well, not just chemotherapy treatments and not just cancer treatments, but for those hematology and oncology patients who they need blood transfusion and any blood products before they get a treatment, they are also treated on both units as well. So I will also present later on today about the Macmillan quality environment marks. This is a big project for us as well, and I will give you a little bit of feedback and because we did patient questionnaires, and we have got a little bit of results now as well from the questionnaires, and what we can do to make the environment more friendly and user-friendly for the patients, and make sure that they will receive the highest care in the highest and safe care in the environment what we could provide to the patients. So I think that would be it, Frankie.
That's lovely. Thank you, Edith. Do you have any questions for Edith before we move on? No, that's great.
Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, well, next we have Vicki talking about the role of the CNS. I think we all absolutely adore our CNSs, and we know that we couldn't have cancer services without them. And but it would be good to actually know what their role is, and just how much they have to get through in their working day. And so, Vicki, can we hand over to you to carry on?
Of course. So I in the introductions, so I'm Vicki Havercroft Dixon. I am the lead cancer nurse at HHFT. I've been there since about mid-September after working at Southampton for over 20 years. So big change for me, and one of my main purposes is to advocate for the CNSs and be their voice, because they don't have a voice in those senior teams. So one of my main roles is to do that. I have got a presentation I'm going to attempt to share. Whether it works, I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fabulous. That helps. I wonder if it's working. There. Can you still see that? Because it's gone on different mode. Fab.
Yeah.
Lovely. So just a little bit of overview about our cancer service at HHFT. As you know, we've got 3 hospital sites. Most of our cancer services are on 2. They're either at Winchester or Basingstoke. Nationally, there's about 375,000 new cancer diagnoses a year. This is going up year on year, and this year I think will be even more. There's a lot more late referrals coming in from GPs. I think there's a lot of late diagnosis because people aren't seeing their GP face to face, and they're having lots of telephone consultations before they're actually seen face to face. We've got a few sad cases, especially in gynae at the moment, that had they been seen face to face when they first presented, may not be in the position they're in now. And I think that's something that we're going to have to work on over the next couple of years, because this is only going to get worse. As a hospital trust, we have about 3,500 new referrals into our cancer pathways a year. And to help look at those 3,500 new referrals, as well as all the patients that are still registered on our books, we only have 52 cancer CNSs, which may sound a lot, but it's really not a lot. If you think out of those CNSs, 5 of those sit in the acute oncology service, 4 of those sit in chemotherapy, so specifically to help prescribe and administer the chemotherapy and work alongside the doctors. So that actually doesn't leave a lot of CNSs across 2 big hospital sites at all. But really supporting those CNSs, we've got 5 support workers that are really helping do the health needs assessments, getting patients on patient triggered follow-up, getting everybody registered on my medical record, and they've had a huge impact having those start. Most of those have started since I've been in post, so they're all fairly new. But just seeing the number of health needs assessments that are now getting completed by having those is amazing. It's quadrupled. So they're doing what they were meant to do. So just a little bit about my role, because I think that will help understand the CNS role as well. So I am strategically responsible for cancer patient experience. I don't sit within the cancer business unit, I sit in the wider trust. So I have to look after all of our cancer nurses, just to understand they don't all sit in cancer care. They could sit in their speciality. So upper GI, for example, will sit in medicine to sit under the gastroenterology business unit and things. So not everybody sits in cancer care. So it's really fab that I don't sit in cancer services. So I get this wider service review and get to look at it across the whole trust. I'm responsible for the personalised care agenda. And that's ensuring that CNSs are doing the health needs assessments, ensuring that they're getting their patients on my medical record. So it's just making sure that I can support the CNSs to do the best job that they can, and they get to see all of their patients. I'm responsible for audit and assessing our cancer pathways, which is a big piece of work that we're doing that really needs to be completed before we have a hopefully new build, if not whatever the long-term plan is going to be for the hospital if we don't get the new build. So looking at those pathways, making sure that our pathways are not exactly the same for Winchester and Basingstoke, because of the distance, some of the pathways work the way they are. So it's just really looking at what is best for our patients. The cancer workforce development, I've just almost completed a big piece of work on this as to what we need. A key thing that's come out is we need more CNSs and we need more allied health care professionals. We need some physios and OTs and more dietitians, etc., into our cancer services to support our patients, both in the community and in the trust. Part of the long-term plan for me as well would also to be have an oncology ward as well as a haematology ward in the new build. So we're working on that as well. So I'm very much part of that those new build discussions, and that's part of the contributing to the strategic decision making. So it's making sure that I am sat on those key meetings where I can impact, and that's why it's really important that we have these meetings, because having the patient's voice brought into those things is really key. And then the best part of my job really is the helping support and guide the CNS workforce, and being a voice for them at those senior meetings. Our CNSs do so much, and I think when I was writing this down, I think it's the next slide, I think you might be surprised. You won't get to read it all. I'm not going to read it all out, but I will let them share these slides afterwards so you can have a bigger picture. Oh, and obviously, as I said on the previous one, working with this group, but actually we've got lots and lots of key partnerships that we work with, all of these support groups. There are more, that's just the ones that I could find the symbols for. So there are a lot more than that, as you know, just from the people that are on this meeting today. So the role of the CNS, I know that's really small, but I will send these out, but that was just to give you, I kind of wanted it on one slide so you could all just see how much work they do actually do. And it's not just about supporting the patient, they support lots of the families as well. There are lots of complex family dynamics that they have to deal with. We have parents where children don't speak to each other, so they have to carefully liaise between the both different children and different family groups. So there are lots of things. They attend every single MDT meeting. They try and attend their first diagnosis meeting if they can, outpatient appointment. They're a key part of that pathway. They're a key part of educating the rest of our workforce across the trust on their speciality as well. Is a massive piece of work. They haven't managed to do a lot of that at the moment due to other restrictions, and lots of education has been stopped over the last couple of years. But they have to maintain their registration, and that means education for themselves and for others. So that is just, I'm not going to read through it all, but I'm going to go through some key points in the next few slides. So nationally, it's deemed best practice to have a CNS present at all new cancer diagnoses. We try, I know it's not always possible, but we do try, and this is a key part. I think one of our main issues in Hampshire hospitals is that we have a lot of single CNSs. So for example, upper GI, we've got one at Winchester and one at Basingstoke, but they don't cross cover, they don't work together. So lots of the work I'm doing is getting more of that cross cover, and actually, do we need a third CNS that will work across both sites, and therefore we can streamline and make sure that all of our patients have CNS contact all of the time, even when their key worker may be on annual leave. So their CNS will act as their key worker throughout their cancer treatment and until they're discharged. And as many of you will know, discharging now, it's not the same as it used to be. So you're now discharged to patient initiated follow-up, which means that you can always come back into the system. You're always on those yearly reviews, won't necessarily be seeing people face to face, but you will be getting that information, or you'll still be having the regular blood tests, which can be monitored through my medical records, etc. I don't know whether we've had a talk on this yet, Frankie, but it might be good to get somebody from the patient triggered follow-up team to come and talk through that at the next one, so that people understand it a bit more.
Good idea, Vicky. Yes, we'll do that.
They also provide the verbal and written information relating to the diagnosis treatment plan, and will also do an end of treatment plan as well. They're there for follow-up telephone calls, follow-up appointments, whether that be virtually or face-to-face, because obviously a lot of this work has gone virtually recently. It will depend on the speciality whether face-to-face is needed every single time or not. And they're there to assess your current symptoms and concerns related to your treatment, as well as the Rainbow unit, which do that very well, I'm sure, when you're having your treatment as well. So it's very much about MDT working. It's very much about the Rainbow unit working with the CNS, working with the consultants, working with the physio OT if required, and then going forward working with our supportive care team, which is obviously ever expanding at the moment, and hopefully we'll have those adverts out to have our complementary therapists and psychologists, etc., to work alongside these. So as I've put on the bottom of the slide there, the CNS will remain that patient's key worker until the end of treatment or until they're discharged, where they'll be given a treatment summary and signposted back to the GP, unless they're on patient triggered follow-up, and then they remain for a lot longer, which has, the patient triggered follow-up has kind of increased that CNS's workload because they're keeping the patients a lot longer. But it hasn't increased our CNS numbers. I am trying, I'm working on that. So the NHS long-term plan also stated that all of our cancer patients should have access to personalised care by 2021. Obviously that was written pre-COVID, but I think as a trust we're getting there. We have got our care support workers in now to help with the health needs assessment. We have finally started my medical record for breast, colorectal and prostate. So they will be expanding, and we're moving on to lymphoma and myeloma next from the My Medical Record. So I think at the next meeting it'd be really good to have somebody from that service come and just talk through what My Medical Record is, what patient stratified follow-up is, because it'll be coming into a lot more specialities soon, and it will mean that a lot more of you have access for longer to our services, even if it isn't that face-to-face. My Medical Record allows you to put in your symptoms and they'll go directly to your team that can respond, and if they feel that you need a face-to-face appointment, then they can put you in face-to-face appointment. So it is about keeping an eye. It's making sure we don't lose anybody to follow up. In the past, there's been lots of patients lost to follow up when we didn't have so many IT systems, etc. And the fact that we've got so many IT systems also confuses things. So having My Medical Record means it's all in one place. It's a patient-held electronic record. Patients can show the GP it. The GP can input into it as well. So it's a much better streamlined way of working. And of course, part of personalised care is this. It's embedded within everything. What matters to me as the patient. So all of these things should be discussed at your health needs assessment. And it's lots of the little things that are included in that you wouldn't think about. And there's lots of quick solutions. Shortness of breath is a key one. It can have such a massive impact on what people do in their day-to-day lives. And actually, there are some key solutions that can be done if we know about these symptoms. I think shortness of breath is one of those that people didn't always talk about because they just thought, oh well, it's normal, that's what's expected. If you're having cancer treatment, you're going to be short of breath. Whereas actually we do have solutions, and that's where we can then signpost to the supportive care team and things to help with those solutions. And a lot of it is helps. It's a lot of it is about signposting to the right people to get that support. So finance is often a huge problem. Most of these people work full-time and suddenly having to not work or work part-time or not work at all. So having that financial support is a real help as well. So if we do the proper health needs assessments, we can really understand what that patient and their family are going through and make sure that they are signposted to the right areas for support. There is support out there for most things. We just need to know about it. We just need to know what support is required, and then we can signpost to the right area. And that's it in a nutshell.
Wow.
Gosh, wow.
Thank you,
Wow.
Vicki, very much.
Yeah, and I think it was just, for me, it was just really important that you understand how big their role is. I know there are some issues with them not being able to attend all the support groups, but hopefully that shows you why they can't attend all the support groups. We're really short in most of our CNS teams. The fact we only have one on each site for most things. We've only got one prostate on each site. We've only got one gynae on each site. We've only got one upper GI on each site. So it's really difficult for them to then cover each other during the annual leave and support everybody. And their main role is to support through that whole diagnosis to end of treatment bit is the predominant bit of their workload. So just anybody got any questions for me?
Martin.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vicki. Yes, it's nice to see on your one of your opening slides about the partnerships, and it's good to see that the prostate cancer group was on there. But in your list of the various roles of the CNS, I know there was nothing at all about working with support groups. So it's what is I understand staff shortages, and yes, I know we've exchanged some emails on that, but there doesn't appear to be any focus there on doing anything with support groups at all. So is that included, or has that been taken up now?
I think it's a really difficult one. I think in the ideal world it would be included and we would attend every single support group that are out there. Yeah. There are a lot of support groups out there, and I think is the issue. And I think the CNS is attending once or twice a year to give you an update and things is absolutely fine, but I think it's really key to know.
I'm not talking specifically about having two support groups, but I'm not hearing anything about is there any role in terms of liaising with support groups, because they just seem to be ignored completely.
It's not ignored completely. It's absolutely part of the role, and it's part of my role.
But my understanding is, if it's not listed, my business background and having written job specs and worked with HR departments, if it's not specifically written into someone's job role, they're not going to get measured on it, and it just doesn't happen. It's another priority. So to me, and your list is not even mentioned.
So in all of the job descriptions, it's under the key working relationships part. So it's not specified as a job on their job list, but in the key working relationships, it's absolutely in there in every single CNS's job role.
So how will they get measured as to their effectiveness in that?
So at the moment, it's not getting measured, but that is something that we can work on. And now that I'm in post as a lead cancer nurse, we've gone for a long time without a lead cancer nurse in Hampshire hospitals. So hopefully now that we have a lead cancer nurse in post, that is something that we can work on.
Okay, so I appreciate they can't come to all our meetings, but what specifically do you think they should be doing for the independent support groups? Can you give us some examples?
So for me, they should be helping with generic symptom management, signposting to other areas if there are specific problems. I think a key thing that they shouldn't be doing if they do attend the meetings is then acting as a counsellor at those meetings for those people, because that's not what their role is to educate. So for me, it's to educate the people on those support groups and their families as to where they can signpost them to if there are specific issues, if there are things that they can help with.
How will that education take place if they don't come to any meetings?
Well, and this is so I have spoken to them, and they are willing to come to 1 or 2 meetings a year. Realistically, they cannot come every single month. They don't have capacity to do their everyday role as it is. When we get more, And what I'm hoping for is to get a lead CNS in every single team, which will increase the team, but will also increase that senior support, that education. And if we have a lead CNS in each team, they will have some time that is not clinical. So they will have a day a week, for example, that will be to do the admin, and will to make sure that they're meeting those KPIs, make sure that they're working with the cancer partnership, making sure they're working with those support groups, and making sure we're getting those pathways right. So that is my long-term aim with Emily, is to get a senior person in each site specific, and that person will also cross-site and help manage both sites and make sure that teams on both sites are working the same, because at the moment then they're not working the same. So that's a key part of the work that I'm doing over the next 12 months, is to get everybody working in a similar way, or the same way where possible.
I asked you and Emily if you'd be available for a meeting to talk to our group specifically. Is that still a possibility?
Yeah.
On Zoom, of course. We're not asking face to face.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Because we really do need to understand. You know, I'll be absolutely blunt in it. Our support group is on the edge of survival. We are not getting new members, and I said in my email to you, we used to get loads of members directly signposted from the hospitals. We're not getting that now. Our group will fold up unless that signposting improves.
So I'm being assured by Chloe that she is still signposting all of her patients to your group.
Yeah, but hang on a second here.
So
we know roughly how many members are being diagnosed. Chloe should be coming back to us and saying, I've run out of your literature. Can I have some more, please? Can I have some more, please? It's not happening. We have asked her, and she said, yes, I'm fine. I've got loads of information. But with the number of patients going through the system, you know, they can't be handed out. Otherwise, as I say, we're getting more requests for information. And yesterday I was in a meeting hosted by Prostate Cancer UK. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the NHS is launching a new publicity drive on prostate cancer in February.
Yeah.
I was well aware that GPs haven't been making referrals during the pandemic for obvious reasons, but they believe something like a third of all missed referrals are prostate cancer referrals. And so there's going to be this big publicity, actually launched by NHS themselves. It's not Prostate Cancer UK. It's with them.
Yeah,
but as our own members are saying, yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. But unless the resources are in place to actually deal with these people, it's going to be a huge struggle.
Yeah. So there is from our prostate perspective, we have been given funding from the Wessex Cancer Alliance for another prostate CNS and a navigator and a physician associate, so to help with that beginning part of the pathway. So all of those posts should be advertised in the next couple of weeks. If they're not already, I think the nurse may be already advertised. And then that is really going to improve because we are expecting that, and that is why Wessex Cancer Alliance have given us funding to specifically help with that pathway.
It's not just the trust itself. It's frontline in the GPs now.
Yeah. So
I don't want to make this about myself, but as a cancer patient, I tried to get a regular blood test through my GP. I was told that the GPs are too busy with COVID. That's their priority. Blood tests weren't seen as an emergency, and I would have to wait over 6 weeks to get a blood test. And this is a blood test at the hospital. This is not, they wouldn't even book it on the system. So I'm just hugely concerned that this new campaign is going to raise awareness, and GP surgeries, which are the first point of contact for all of this, they're just not going to be able to cope with it.
Yeah. So GP surgeries are part of the wider urology review that is going on across Wessex, and the primary care have also been allocated some money to support that beginning of the pathway.
That's good to hear
as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Vicky, thank you very much. We'll carry on talking offline. Take up any more time today.
Yeah. And
thank you, Martin. Thank you, Vicky. Okay, Suzanne, Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Do you want to say something,
I think it's important to add. I think there is some important points there. However, you know, this is a multifaceted role and very diverse as a CNS. And there are many new ways that they can actually set up their support to reach out to these local support groups and charities. And that's something CSP will be sharing and talking to Vicki about, because there's many ways which won't use their time. Initially, it's time dependent, but then obviously it could just be shared in the future. So there's lots of new ways to work, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eileen.
Yeah, okay. Did you want to say anything else, Vicki, quickly?
I think it was just to make you aware as a service that CNSs may end up getting redeployed as part of the next wave of COVID as well, which I'm really fighting at the moment, but it's not an easy fight.
No.
So it is going to deplete their services even further for the next month.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that question if you were able to answer it. Yeah, thank you, Vicki. Thank you.
Right. Can we move on now to Suzanne?
We've got, oh yeah, Suzanne. Yeah.
Thank you. It's just a quick one, actually, Vicki. Really lovely to hear your talk. I'm an oncology nurse myself. I just wanted to know, is the lack of the CNSs because there's lack of funding for the roles, or are you not getting the right people coming forward for the posts?
So there's lack of funding for the roles, but I think also at Hampshire Hospitals, because we don't have the oncology inpatient wards like some of our trusts for the rest of Wessex have, it's really difficult to train. It takes twice as long to train a CNS because they haven't been looking after patients having chemotherapy, they haven't been looking after patients having radiotherapy, and they're just not used to looking after that patient group. So we do get applicants, but it takes a long time to train them up, a lot longer than it did from my experience in Southampton. And that's because probably 90% of our CNSs in Southampton came from the oncology units.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Phil?
Oh, morning. Hi, Vicki. My name's Phil. I'm the Wellbeing Coordinator at Wessex Cancer Trust. I just want to say, do you know what? Brilliant bringing my medical record in to the system. I actually used it at Southampton on the gastro team. And when I had to use it, it was a godsend, to be honest, because you know how busy the CNSs are, and all the nursing teams send an email and you get a quick response, and also even things like blood tests, you could ask, request. So they're having that, it's going to be easier for a lot of patients ongoing. But also to say, you know, how well the CNS is, they're doing an amazing job. And with the role that I do, I speak to a lot of patients, you know, newly diagnosed as well, who, when I ask, how did you hear about the support that Wessex can offer? And they always say, it's through the CNSs, it's through the hospital, and that ongoing, to give that personalised care, but that ongoing support, that flawless is sometimes quite seamless as well, that approach things. I think, you know, brilliant, well done.
Thank you. I mean, just to add to that, so I used my medical record I was an IBD CNS back in 2014, so we used it all the time then. So it was a bit of a shock that we're only just bringing it in now, having used it nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah, and being introduced at Southampton when I didn't know anything, and the IBD team there, they were absolutely brilliant. And the nurses, they were amazing. In fact, I know so many of them by name, but I don't know them by face because I used my medical record. So. Yeah.
I'm very biased because I came from that team. So.
Vicki, Cindy has a question for you, please.
Okay.
Well, hi, Vicki. Yeah, really, as a patient in the service, really appreciate the CNSs and can absolutely see they're under so much pressure. What I would say was, is there any possibility that they can actually link up, say, for instance, across areas like oncology and breast, because they don't actually seem to know what each other's sort of doing for that patient. And sometimes as a patient, you don't know who to go to because it might be something, for instance, radiotherapy. I was referred back to the breast nurses, CNSs, but actually some of radiotherapy sits with oncology and the oncology consultant. So I just wondered if they ever have an opportunity to get together and to, like you say, look at those pathways.
Yeah, so one of the key things we're looking at is more joint clinics as well. So oncology and breast are a good example of that. Respiratory and oncology as well is another group that we're looking at having joint clinics. It's finding the clinic space, of course. But yeah, and I think we are working. So I've set up CNS forums now for all the cancer nurses, which we hold, well, we do it in 2 days because I can't catch everyone at once. And I think that's been really key in everybody. So it's on Teams because we can't meet face to face, but everybody has their camera on. And I think that's been really key in everybody getting to know each other and seeing who each other is and shouting about their service and what they do and what they can do. So it's definitely something that we're working on. And it's also coming under that pathway review that we're doing for all of our site specific. So I do understand that it's a problem. It's enhanced by the fact radiotherapy is owned by Southampton as well, so that brings another issue into it, and most of our consultants are Southampton consultants as well, so there are a lot more wide issues that are taking me a while to unpick, but we will get there. But thank you for that feedback, that's helpful.
Okay, the only other thing to say is one thing I noticed through radiotherapy recently was the amount of men that have in their prostate cancer treatment, and I just wondered if that unit could be a unit where maybe CSP could support, or somebody, or even the support workers on reception are lovely. So it's just sort of, you know, could there be something there or somebody coming in?
Yeah, so that is where our supportive care service is going to be, with our counsellor and psychologist and complementary therapy. So there'll be lots of information going up in there. Michelle, that is the admin for the ARC charity, is working with us to try and get that looking more appealing and signposting people a little bit better as well. So that will be improved.
That's something CSP is working with Jana about, for Cindy, so thank you.
Okay.
It's always difficult to keep everybody updated about everything. Yeah, but thank you, really valuable, thanks. Okay, Frankie.
Right, yes, is there anything else for Vicki? If not, we'll move on to edits. Thank you, Vicki, so much. I mean, that was just, I think we just needed to understand that, and it was brilliant. Okay, right, so if we move on now back to Edit, Edit's going to talk to us about the Macmillan Quality Environment Mark accreditation. So over to you then, Edit.
I'm just going to share my presentation as well. Oh, going back. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm going to talk today about the Macmillan Quality Environment Mark. The assessment was done in the Rainbow unit in the first building in Basingstoke. So what is the Macmillan Environment Quality Mark? So Macmillan wants people who are affected by cancer to be treated in a supported and high quality environment. Because this environment in the first actually it's a standalone building in the trust, and I felt that we have got a good opportunity here to improve the environment for patients attending, and not only for patients but any service users and the relatives as well. So I have led the unit in Sarum Road Hospital when I was working there to achieve the award. So I know what it entails, and then I just felt that we do have got a really good chance here, and that's why I initiated this. So this environment is to provide the space with facilities, information, health and social care professionals to provide the very best possible care and support. And it is an evidence-based tool that specifically assesses the physical environment. So it was developed in partnership with the Department of Health in England, and it's a leading academic institution to build a strong evidence base, establishing the link between good environments and the enhanced health outcomes. So people who affected by cancer suggested and prioritized the criteria for the standards. What are the benefits? So the unit will be presented with an award plaque, and we can display this in the reception area, or even in the treatment bay where the patients are. Also, we will receive the MQEM award logo that can be placed on our website, on the letters, and any literature. Going forward, that it will be also included in a special section on the Macmillan's website as well, and on the NHS choices. If the environment assessment somehow doesn't meet the criteria or the standards, the Macmillan will work with the team to achieve that, and they could potentially provide some expertise and funding if it was appropriate. So this slide just shows about the assessment process. So where we are in this, we have identified a Macmillan Quality Environment Champion, and we have done our self-assessment. So some part was what is the word? Sorry. Some part was the Cancer Services partnership, like Elaine and Frankie was helping me, and Jackie was helping me to do the assessment, to fill out the questionnaires and the self-assessment in the first. So very much appreciated, and it's very helpful. Thank you. And also the other one is that we had a questionnaire, a set of questionnaires, which was part of the assessment tool as well, was sent out to the patient. This slide will come back in a minute as well, so I just want to talk a little bit more about the self-assessment tool. So 5 core principles are for the environment, how easily it can be, the accessibility, the privacy and dignity, comfort and the well-being, and the choice and control and support. And the core principles are applied to 4 domains. That is the design and the use of the space, the user's journey, the service experience, and the user's voice. And there are 5 levels how the facility should be assessed. That is from very poor to excellent. And with the assessment, when Macmillan will come and do the assessment on the unit, the level 4 is the standard what we have to achieve in overall. So I want to talk a little bit about the questionnaires. So the questionnaires, the long questionnaire was part of the assessment tool. So we have sent out, I think it was back in October, November time, when we sent out some questionnaires to the patients. And we have got now some results back. There are just a few. I don't know whether you are able to see the comments on the slide here. Just please read a few. So this is just a few comments, and we have got the so gathered. I think we received 95 questionnaires back, which I think it's a huge amount of data what we can analyze and put an action plan in together, what we can do and how to change the environment for the patients and the service as well. So this will be the next step for us. So now we have got the response back from the patients, and this is our next step. Yeah, it's a very good comment, and some of them are very, very useful for us, and I feel that some of them are actually easy fix, but very useful comments. So the next step would be after the action plan, so work alongside the action plan and hopefully make some changes, and then we would be able to apply for the external assessment. So we have to submit the request for the visit, and then Macmillan will be able to, they have to come on site to do the visit, and they will do the assessment, and on the same day they will let us know whether we have achieved the award or not. And the assessment needs to be maintained in every 3 years. So whatever we were not able to achieve, even if we get the award, we are not able to achieve, then we have to have it in action plan for the next 3 years and work alongside that.
Mm.
Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Edith. Wow. So anybody got any questions for Edith on this award?
I will share, of course, the slides.
Yeah, thank you. I've just asked if you can send the slides to us, then we'll forward them out. So if anyone hasn't had any information from us, please put your email address in the chat box, and then you'll get a copy of today's slides as well. Thank you.
Okay. Right, thank you very much. Okay, if there's no more questions for Edith, then we'll move on. And this is something I'm so interested in because I've never heard of it before. It's something called Tygwyn. And so I'm so looking forward to this presentation by Andrew. Is Andrew? Oh, there's Andrew.
Yes, sorry, and I'm double muted, so it took me a little while to come on.
Okay,
yeah,
fine, Andrew. Are you happy to go ahead now?
Yes, yes, indeed. I will attempt to share screen with luck. Right, can you now see a presentation Why Won't Men?
Yes.
Cool, right, okay. And sorry, you mentioned Tygwyn. Tygwyn's just the name of well, perhaps I'll mention it when I introduce ourselves. So this is loosely entitled "Why Won't Men?" and it's a short talk which follows on from a conversation we had with Eileen and Jana last year, which is how do we encourage men to engage with supporting therapies and activities following medical treatments for cancer. And this is backed up by the observation that men tend not to engage with such therapies when offered. These are just my personal views based on my own observations, experience, and recent conversations I've had when I've grabbed chaps and said, why don't you? So who am I? Alison and I, we teach complementary practices. We teach meditation and mindfulness for well-being, and we teach Qigong, which is an exercise system that comes from China. They're well established in their use for well-being and are supported by research. For us, most of the people we teach are women, but we also have some men, and some of the men stay with us for quite a long time. We've had a guy actually going through prostate cancer treatment on our Qigong group, and he has been absolutely enthusiastic and committed to that. I make the observation that I'm not a health professional, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a teacher. I was an engineer in the electronics industry until 6 years ago when I took early retirement. I've suffered with anxiety all my adult life. I found meditation useful, and that's why we are now teaching that. And also, just one guy, I feel very nervous here about saying this is what men think, and I'm only one. I think what I'm will say is shared by more than just me, but obviously, you know, I don't speak for everyone. So some quick caveats and terms. This is a very short talk on a very, very complex subject, and therefore it is obviously simplified, and I feel bad about that. I focused on men as requested, but I think these observations apply to, actually shouldn't say everyone, obviously they don't apply to everyone, but they can apply to anyone. And some quick shorthand, when I talk about hard therapies, I'm talking about things like chemotherapy and surgery, things done by experts to us, which are focused on the illness, and generally speaking, they are regarded as non-optional. And soft, which is complementary therapies, practices, including counseling, talking therapies, absolutely everything focused on the whole person and widely regarded as optional. And I've used the one word complementary as the shorthand for everything that goes into this bag. And it's a very, very diffuse and spread bag. But I've just used the one hand as a shorthand. So a quick skate through the challenges as I see. Oh yeah, I should have added on the introduction. Yes, I'm not a health professional. I'm also very new to this group, and I feel very nervous sort of talking in front of you all. And I don't want anything to be treading on anyone else's toes. If I said, we could do with an improvement here or something or other, it's not a criticism or anything. It's just an observation from my standpoint. Anyway, so the challenges, these two are presented rather starkly. The true picture is always more nuanced, and everything's in a constant state of change. But anyway, there's a big frightening beast on our path. One, there are psychological, societal, and cultural issues. There are multiple models of masculinity. I mean, this one line has 3 different dimensions. There are models of masculinity. There is one's own self-image, and then there is one's self-image compared against the model of masculinity that you like the look of. There are also various attitudes across society, including in particular how a hero behaves in the face of illness. We've all heard stories about people who've gone in and had major operations, and when 3 hours they're back at the chalk face, they're driving their taxi and they're doing something else. This turning that kind of attitude or response into the hero mode is a challenge. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. These are toxic ideas, and you can understand why they grab hold of you, but they are actually semi-toxic ideas. Here I'm seeing these issues as potholes. They're a nuisance, but they're not going to go away, and they're not easily fixable. Just like real potholes, you might fill them in with sand or whatever, but within a couple of days they're just back there. We need to acknowledge them and drive around them, because they need not stop us getting where we need to. Number 2, I'm picking up on the negative perceptions of complementary stuff, which even I, 8 years ago would have regarded as woo, strange, esoteric, supernatural, flaky, non-scientific, wacky, irrational, foreign or other, belonging to someone else. There's all this in there. Secondly, that it involves making ourselves more vulnerable. It involves exposing ourselves or confronting the demons that we're fighting. In other words, it's scary. And also, this idea, which is that it's actually mostly for women. Most of the people who take part in these type of activities, practices, therapies, etc., are women, and it appears that most of the teachers and therapists are as well. So it looks like a heavily feminine world. Men are present in our, I mean, we're in 2 teacher communities, one for Qigong and one for meditation. And there is a sizable minority of men in both those places. They're active, but the majority is still good. 3, one of the people I spoke to was a guy we know very well, family member, who's had a little skirmish with testicular cancer in the last couple of years. And I asked him how he felt about engaging with all this complementary and soft stuff. And his answer was, I'm just too busy. You know, got jobs. He has a young family. And once the hard therapies stop, there is enormous pressure to return to normal. Hard therapy is just accepted. Chemotherapy, you know, everyone understands that this needs to be done and there is support. But softer approaches don't have that kind of support. And you just know, I mean, one of the earlier talks talked about financial pressures. This plays into that space as well. There is an utter drive to get on with your life. And all the other potholes that I just mentioned also exist and complement and complicate this. Number 4, it's just too much effort. I don't need to stress this too much here, but you know, major illness and its treatment knocks the stuffing out of you. And once you've done everything you have to do to survive, it can be hard to find the energy to do anything else. And there is also probably a trauma response as well. You know, sometimes we're just stunned. Sometimes we want to climb under the dining table with a blanket over our head and just stay there. And I put a perhaps in front of this because I know it's a mix, but with looking at anxiety and depression, it's only over the last few decades that with the rise of body psychology, that people have started to understand just exactly how trauma hits the body and what impact it has. And although I'm sure amongst specialists, the trauma of illness is recognized, I suspect that in the wider community and in the public, it's not sufficiently recognized as a thing. 5, also from this, one of the chaps I spoke to, there was a response of, I actually don't know what all this stuff is all about. And there is a general lack of understanding about what complementary therapies and practices, even amongst those who might be open-minded and keen to engage with these kind of things. You know, every time I mention Qigong, I need to explain it from scratch. People don't understand. There are complementary therapies which I don't understand very well. There's a guy on here who does EFT. I know that by indirectly because Alison had EFT, and I think from the same guy some years ago, but I don't really understand it. It's a bag of approaches which are not well understood. Even meditation and mindfulness, which are very, very commonly talked about in press and so on and so forth. It seems to me that no one actually really understands what meditation and mindfulness is. And when we talk to people about it, mostly we have to undo a whole load of preconceptions in order to talk to them. So combined with all the other potholes that we've discussed over the last few slides, this actually leads to low levels of faith, hope, and trust, which are actually essential for people to commit to this. You know, things like chemotherapy and surgery are really, really scary things to go through. And yet actually that with the NHS as a whole, there is quite a high level of faith and hope in these techniques. There is belief that these approaches will actually help people. On the complementary side, I don't think that's there yet. We have people who take part. We have, you know, people in our groups who've taken part who get terribly enthusiastic. But on the whole, that's probably a minority. 6, and then there is fear, and fear is still taboo, even though, you know, there is a move that it is now okay to talk about fear. That's a big mountain to move. Feelings of vulnerability, of exposure, of coming to terms with weakness, of the humiliation that sometimes we feel when faced with illness and its consequences. It actually takes enormous courage to actually come out and say, I am scared of doing this sort of approach because I don't know what it means. I've also put here the challenge of verbal expression. I mean, clearly not every man feels has this, but I know I am challenged by in groups when I'm asked to explain things. I often find it enormously difficult to explain how it is I feel. This presentation I've been working on for several days and rehearsing, so I know the narrative flow, I know where I'm going and all the rest of it. But in a quick one-to-one, I find it enormously difficult to put into words how I'm actually feeling. And the huge contrast here is Alison, who's brilliant, who can find a few slides and just talk straight off the top of her head, most eloquently and passionately about subjects, and I just sit there in awe because I need to rehearse everything. So if you're asking us to, for people like that, if you're asking us to engage with talking therapies or anything like that, it is automatically scary, because when we're sitting there, it's really hard to put words to the feelings we feel. And ultimately, avoidance is actually a protective strategy in itself. If we are scared of these therapies, then we simply will not engage with them. And hiding because they are option is perfectly okay. So what could be done? A number of these potholes we're just going to have to drive around. The psychological and cultural and societal issues are enormous, and they're big, and we're not going to be able to do anything to really, they are changing, but we're not going to be able to do anything ourselves here to be able to fix this. The difficulties of, the too busy, the financial pressure, the need to return to ordinary life because there are jobs and families to look after. Those are big issues that we're not going to get around, etc. However, maybe we could do something about the bottom group, which is the perceptions of the complementary sector, of people not knowing what this stuff is all about, and the issue of fear and apprehension. So here's a proposal just for discussion, that maybe we need to make a better case for the use of the complementary approach. We need to improve understanding of this approach as a whole, the whole sort of airy-fairy complementary approach, in order to reduce fear and build trust, and allow decisions to be better informed. Qigong has a little, it's a physical practice, but it has a little bit of wacky stuff in it as well. If people are going to say yes or no to that, then it would be a good idea if they were informed about it, so that their no makes sense or their yes makes sense. Perhaps we also need to build awareness, and I'm nervous about treading on toes here, that the trauma of illness needs attention as well as the illness itself. I'm sure that's understood in professional circles. Out in the real world, I'm not so certain. And perhaps we need to attempt to normalize the use of complementary and support practices. Because at the moment there's this kind of feeling that only wacky people actually engage in those kind of things. So maybe we could hold some workshops to explain the complementary approach and illustrate therapies and practices. A couple of years ago, the stroke unit from Winchester Hospital came to our local area and did a 2-hour talk, and actually that was quite nicely structured. I thought it was quite good and quite well run, and that might be the sort of thing that we could do. Those workshops need to be oriented at the potholes and the issues that I've kind of listed above, and others. And maybe we can adopt a standard and more user-friendly way of presenting the available options, because they're very widespread and people don't necessarily understand. I'm going to illustrate this over the next 3 more slides. When I talk about the characteristics of the complementary approach, I mean these kind of things: the use of a holistic approach and why it's important. Holistic approach gets mentioned lots, but actually I don't think the importance of it is widely understood. It's the idea that the mind and body are indivisible, which runs against classical European philosophy. For centuries, millennia, people have been saying the mind is important and the body is less so. Well, we now don't see it that way, and there is complex behavior which involves both mind and body. There is, generally speaking, a focus on issues such as balance and restoration, of rebuilding the self and getting back on the front foot. A cricketing metaphor which I use an awful lot on our talking. Also, typically the use of non-linear and non-verbal methods. What a horrible piece of garbage and of terminology that is. It's because it's very hard to find words to describe an approach that doesn't use words. Meditation is a non-verbal approach, and non-linear meaning typical Western thinking is idea, 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 and that's how we make arguments. That's a very linear argument. These kind of approaches, including meditation, are non-linear. They work in different ways. Ian McGilchrist talks about left hemisphere versus right hemisphere. These are right hemisphere techniques: exercise, touch, movement, feeling, sensory, poetry, music, all these kind of things that work to change the perception of the self without being based in words. Active as well as passive. Traditional medical stuff is all passive. We have it done to us by specialists. Chemotherapy is done to us. Surgery is done to us. And there is complementary stuff such as acupuncture and massage therapy and reflexology that's still done to us. But there are a number of practices which are active, such as meditation, qigong, yoga, and other practices like that, where our engagement is absolutely critical. And I think the active side is an important part of getting back on the front foot. When I talk about having a standard way of actually presenting a complementary therapy or practice, this is what I mean. This is probably about the 10th iteration of this slide. But the idea is that everything that we do, that one does or maybe is offered, should try and attempt to answer these particular questions. What is it? What's the history and underlying theory that lie behind it? What's its background? How much woo is there? And maybe how that can be approached. Qigong has a little bit of woo in it, but there are ways of actually approaching the woo in Qigong is the idea of internal body energy, which comes out of Chinese traditional medicine. And you can either ignore that, or you can revel in it, or you can use it as a meditation. So many different approaches, but there is stuff there that people find can find off-putting. What supporting evidence there is for many of these practices now? There is quite a lot of research that says actually, yeah, they can be useful. How the approach is governed and the standards that exist. And then on the individual side, what's involved? What would I have to do? And how safe would I be? And that's, am I going to walk into this and someone's going to ask me to, confront my feelings or expose myself or anything like that? It's just nice to be able to say, no, you can turn up for this and you do stuff and you don't even have to talk. An illustration of what people might actually gain from this. If you go through this, and it's kind of coupled with the next thing as well, other people's experience. The guy with who's gone through prostate cancer has just said it's just the physical practice has enabled him to feel better, stronger. And also it's given him some confidence that he's fighting back as well. I know it's not a man, but we've had a couple of people who are struggling with breast cancer go through our courses and training as well. And it's often about just building the self of getting back in charge when something has happened to you and knocked you off being. This sort of stuff could easily be also put on the web as well. So last slide. In conclusion, why won't men do what we think they ought to do? There are many issues that combine here: cultural, societal and psychological issues, and a lot of these weigh against men's adoption of complementary support. But maybe the barriers of no time and no energy, uncertainty and apprehension, in particular those two, can actually be countered by us making a slightly better case, by providing better information on complementary approaches, building confidence in their suitability, and also beginning to normalize their use for everyone, including men. And actually, we could potentially do this in this community. Thank you. That was the slide that we put up in the last gathering a couple of months ago. But I'll leave that there. But that's it. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Let me stop the share. There we go. Sorry, was that a bit of a charge through?
Yeah. Sorry, Frankie, I'm jumping in straight there. Wow, Andrew.
Yes, no, please, yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
So many chords, and I hope everybody, I think you deserve a massive round of applause. That was so powerful, really. Thank you so much. We are so really grateful, and I think we can really do more and more about this. And I see we have quite a few hands up now, so let's go for it. And I do apologise, I didn't see who put their first hand up first, so I am going to go with, is it Sean? Yeah, I can't, you're on mute, sorry.
Yeah. At first, I'd just like to say that was a really wonderful presentation, Andrew, for someone who says that they're very nervous, and I think you've done a really good job in helping the complementary therapy world to get like a little bit of recognition. I think the reason why I put my hand up is I've been blessed to work at, as I said, Breast Cancer Haven in Wessex when it first opened, and I really experienced the complementary side of helping people with cancer. It wasn't just me; it was just an area which is basically set up. It had acupuncturists, counsellors, myself, the hypnotherapist, but of course we recognize the connection between the mind and the body. And people used to come in and they just used to say what a wonderful place it was. And of course the reality is, I think it's this thing about working together. You know, we need each other in many ways, and I think there's the Western and the Eastern side of things, and of course we need, but we really do well together. And I think we did get the feedback that we really helped. We recognize the connection between the mind and the body, and we really did help so many of the visitors that came here with that sort of emotional side, really, you know, the emotional challenges of having breast cancer and the physical. So I just wanted to say that because I've had sort of experience over 6 years of being in that world where we saw wonderful results, really. So well done again. It was great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I've spent several hours sitting down at the house in Titchfield, and I'm really sorry that that's gone now, because what was going on there and the atmosphere of that house when you walked into it was tremendous.
Yes, I think it was. I think it is. Well, it's, you know, it's so sad that it's gone. But I suppose you have to move on in life, and I think just being able for me to come here today, and I'm definitely from that complementary world where I understand all the things you talk about the skepticism and of course one of the biggest things really is being able just to do it. If you have an opportunity for people to experience it, then it's up to them. And in most cases, I think they basically can see the benefits of it. So yeah, thank you again. It was great.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. I think I saw Pam with her hand up. Pam, please. And then I think I saw Martin as well.
I was applauding actually, but I'm more than happy to give a view. So Andrew, thank you so much. I thought that was truly eloquent for someone who obviously suffers with anxiety, and it's not a natural natural thing for you to deliver. I thought what it made me feel like doing was, I mean, I put on the chat that I've recently qualified as a sophrologist, and like, I can't even say it, Pijong, I don't think many people understand what sophrology is about. And I wonder whether there's an opportunity for all of the complementary therapists that are interested to get together and just to discuss, you know, what in a forum that's not about competing for business or anything else, because I actually work full time in my day job, and this is something that I'm learning to do, and I want to apply in a cancer arena to help people rather than to help myself. So I'm just wondering whether you've inspired me to kind of reach out and see if there are other people who work in a complementary way that we can share and discuss, and maybe, you know, make things stronger and give people more options and possibilities.
Thank you, Pam. And that is very much Jana's role at Hampshire Hospitals, and we work very closely. So let Cancer Services Partnership take that one, and with Jana, let's create something really very soon. So thank you. And Martin, and I see Phil, you have your hand up as well. So Martin.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much for that. I think that really sums up what we feel. As you probably gathered from a logo behind me, what I said earlier, I'm the chair of the North Hampshire Prostate Cancer Support Group. And over the years, we've had several talks on complementary therapy from St Michael's Hospice, the lead there. We've had a person come and talk on mindfulness. I'm a great believer in mindfulness myself. We've had someone from our local laughter club, but it's interesting that you mention it. All these people that came and talked were women. No men actually talking about the benefits on this, and I think it's something, an area to explore, and I'd like to get in contact with you offline after this meeting. I think, yeah, absolutely. These therapies are so essential, and as I say, you really summed up all of the roadblocks and the challenges. And I think, from my point of view, and a couple of people I've spoken to, if you can just get a man to experience something for the first time and walk away from a session and say, I feel better after that, you know, that's done a lot of good, they will then go back and take it up and do it again. But it's overcoming that initial hurdle. It's overcoming this woo factor, as you sum it up. You know, once you break that down, it's great. So yeah, thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. And Phil.
Yeah, we at Wessex we have quite a holistic approach, and we also do have a lot of Zoom-led, you know, support. Things like sound therapy. We do also offer Reiki, especially in our Bournemouth centre. It's been so popular that we've just started introducing it again to the Hythe, the Waterside, and the Chandler's Ford centres, because that approach now, especially men, spoken to a lot of men with diagnosis, that there's a stigma attached, and there always has been. I've taken part in a lot of the sound therapy. I'd never done it before. I actually fell asleep in the session that's provided by Sonia Gundry. I found it quite emotional, but I do get now people with heightened anxiety, a lot of mental health issues now because of treatment diagnosis, wanting an approach. And sometimes GPs say, you know, instead of medication, try another approach, which is what people are craving for. And unfortunately, Jane, the centre manager, left Chandler's Ford Centre last year, but we were really sort of proactive about getting more support at the centres for everyone. So having things like Tai Chi classes, Reiki, and reflexology, which is really important. And it's proved, to be honest, they're our busiest sessions. And I can see the benefits, being a man myself as well, and sometimes removing those stigmas that men have, and some women as well, different cultures. Sometimes they feel, again, some people say it's a punishment, which is very strange with people with cancer diagnosis to say that, but then to say, but this support is here for everyone with no judgment, and you come along and you just be yourself.
Yeah, it's very true. Thank you, Phil. Thanks. There's a few, Cindy, I saw your hand pop up there, but there is a few comments, if I may quickly go in the chat box. There's a few people that have had to leave. Brenda has shared one of the difficulties of having an illness in the pandemic has been the options for face-to-face complementary therapies. Absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully as we move forward through this pandemic, in the coming year, let's hope we can get a bit more of that going. But there is lots of stuff online, but it doesn't quite hit the spot, does it sometimes? I think, Phil, you were wanting Sean's email address. Yeah, so if you haven't seen that, Sean. And Paula. Yeah. Paula is very much put in the chat box. There's absolutely great all about the topics. Not sure if everybody's aware, Hampshire Hospitals is celebrating its 10-year anniversary, being Hampshire Hospitals Foundation Trust. So obviously Basingstoke, Winchester, Andover, bringing them all together. Was that 10 years ago? Gosh. So could anybody that has any positive stories, and there are millions out there, share their stories and messages and send them to Paula, or contact the organisation through their website, and let's really celebrate Hampshire Hospitals. Thank you, Paula. Her email is there as well.
If you could initially share them with me, that would be really helpful, because what I've been tasked with doing is actually liaising with support groups to get some messages of, you know, positive stories, messages of thanks, what have you, either as, you know, individual patients, if you've been through us, or from the perspective of how you've worked with us as support groups over those last 10 years. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. There's lots of activity on Twitter. I actually run CSP's Twitter account, and there's lots of stuff on there about people sharing their stories. So I think that's why I thought just hit them on the email website as well. So anybody else wanting to say something? I think I saw someone's hair, Margaret, and then we will move on. Just pop any other comments into the chat box. Margaret, thank you.
You're on mute, Margaret.
Margaret, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. This is an IT specialist at work. Don't you feel better? Can I please say to Andrew and Alison, thank you very much for highlighting the fact that there is trauma associated with these illnesses that we're experiencing, because I find that it's something that is very often not given any time at all. It may be that, you know, we get a bit of support when the first diagnosis is given and people are saying, oh, how are you coping, and this, that and the other. But I get the feeling that often it tends to ebb away, and with the end of treatment, people very often feel, you know, perhaps they should be fine now, and, you know, nothing else is going on, they're past their chemo and all the rest of it. But I don't think they take on board somehow, or sometimes, how deep the trauma can be. From my own experience, not as myself, but as supporting someone through cancer, I can see that there is very often quite a significant change in outlook. And there is a tremendous amount of care and support needed to get people through that. And I would say possibly men in particular, in which case the care has to be fairly covert.
Yeah,
so thank you for highlighting that.
Thank you very much, Margaret. And I think, just quickly to add, I think there's a huge amount of work that has got to be done about survivorship, living with and beyond cancer, a huge amount of work. But let's just think about what we can do as Cancer Services Partnership. Let's all come together. And Louise, finally, and then we do need to move on. But Louise, welcome and thank you.
Hi, just a quick one. In November, we launched North and Mid Hampshire Social Prescribers Forum. So it's a brand new group, and I am just thinking, could everyone who offers the therapies, like I'm not even going to pronounce it, Andrew, I'm so sorry, and the Laughter Club, the reflexology, this sophrologist, gosh, I need to speak properly. I am really interested in having your details to pass on to the social prescribers. This is exactly what we need for this network. You know, these services are out there, and I think it's common of a lot of groups, is that these services and the support is out there, but people don't know about them. But I would love the details from everybody that offers the support and these services. It would be really helpful. I did put my email in the chat earlier. I'll just stick it up again now, just in case.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's brilliant, Louise. I was just going to say that. Could you pop it there again so it sort of comes back to the beginning of the chat, the end, this current point of the chat?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Something else for social prescribers. Direct them to Cancer Services Partnership website. We have so many opportunities on there to signpost. We are not a support group. This committee isn't a support group at all, but we actually signpost, and we support the support groups and local charities as well. So that's something very much that you could be encouraging them to do. Send them to our website. And of course, they can contact us through the website as well. Thank you. Jackie.
Can I just say, Eileen, I didn't know if everybody knew what social prescribers were, whether Louise could just do a very quick 2 seconds on the role of the social prescribers, because I think it's a new thing in the NHS and people may not have come across it.
Yeah, sorry, that's me just making an assumption. Naughty. Thank you, Jackie. Louise.
Do you know what? It's a new thing to me as well. It was a new project that just came about in the summer last year. So yes, it's very new to me. I think in a nutshell, just to keep it very short, it is treatment, therapy, a way of looking at people's issues, medical issues, of treating them without using drugs. So, you know, alternative ways of medicating, if you like, but without using drugs. So it's the support and the services that are out there. You know, people who suffer from anxiety, depression, sometimes drugs aren't the answer. It's having people to talk with, you know, sharing their thoughts, their feelings, their experiencing, and that can work so much better than giving drugs to people. So in a nutshell, very, very basic, that is what a social prescriber is. There aren't, clearly, as a lot of things, there aren't enough in the area, and some of the social prescribers are one for 40,000 patients, which is extremely difficult. But obviously, as the facilitator of the network, what I aim to do is to publicise and promote all of these services that people are offering. You know, today has been extremely useful to me, and I will we have a meeting next Thursday, and I will definitely be passing this on. If anybody wanted to come to the network, it is free, and it is on Eventbrite. You can sign up through Eventbrite.
Okay, thank you.
And am I right in saying that social prescribers, they're NHS employees, they work within or across several GP practices? I think that's how you access them, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, they sometimes they're not. It's not a social prescriber. Sometimes it can be a care coordinator. Sometimes it's a health and wellbeing coordinator. They come under various titles, if you like, but yes, they are all the same. And yeah, sometimes they share them. The Red Cross also have social prescribers that work across the NHS, but yeah, predominantly NHS.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, they all have different titles, and they sit under primary care, don't they, basically?
Yeah, they're all under the PCNs. Yeah.
So we really need to move on. If anybody, thank you so much, Louise, and we certainly will keep all connected. So we do really need to leave on. If anybody's got any other comments, could you pop it in the chat box? Because we really would like to give Fran some time. Frankie, did you want to introduce Fran? I'll be quiet.
That's fine. Well, I was going to leave Fran to introduce herself. I think most of us have seen her before, so if you'd like to go ahead, Fran, and introduce yourself and tell us what you're here for, that would be great.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Frankie. I have to say my head is completely spinning at this point. I thought, Andrew, I mean, you are such a hard act to follow. I don't know that I'm even going to try. But it just rang true on so many counts. And it's Sandy Jack, who I don't know if everybody knows her, but she's the Professor of Prehabilitation Medicine at Southampton. And one of her mantras is that we have the MDTs where tumours are staged and decisions around clinical treatment are made, but she's always saying we should stage the patient at the same time and to pull all those other bits together, and that supportive side and that mind-body interaction, which is so, so key. Now, I'm supposed to be talking about the prehabilitation pathway for palliative patients, working title, which I will pick up on. But I also just wanted to say, in terms of websites and getting your messages out there, I agree the Cancer Service Partnership one is a really good place to start, but we also have the Cancer Matters website, which covers Wessex, and Cancer Care Map, I think, are brilliant, and they will do, you could sort of write blogs, and we could have a whole health and wellbeing area focused on Hampshire hospitals there, which might be something to think about in the future. And it's lovely. I'm going to be linking up with Louise because we are actually putting on some cancer specific webinars for social prescribers, fitness instructors out there, because again, we need to be working with that wider workforce out there, because there is so much going on, but not everybody knows what it is, and we need.
That's the problem, yeah.
Sorry?
I said, yeah, that is the biggest problem, that there are all these services out there. It's getting them,
but they're not coordinated.
Exactly, yeah. So I look forward to speaking with you, Fran. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. Thanks, Louise. And certainly we've got a meeting coming up where I'm pulling together all the information support providers together to again start joining up, because as you say, there's more than enough work for everybody. Just to give you a little bit of background, first of all, there was WESFIT, which was the prehabilitation trial, which was focused on patients going on to a curative surgical pathway. So it was true prehabilitation, which looked at improving people's physical fitness, but alongside that, there was the emotional support and nutritional advice going on side. So when I talk about all things prehabilitation, rehabilitation, to me, at the universal level, it is optimized, personalized care, because it's looking at people's health and well-being, and those three different arms of it: the physical exercise, the nutritional support, but absolutely vitally the emotional, psychological support. So WESFIT was quite intense, showed that, and certainly the data that's come out of Southampton is that even exercise, prescribed exercise 3 times a week for 2 to 3 weeks makes a difference. And we have shown in Southampton that it reduces bed days post-surgery, which is huge. And I think it's the first time a trial has been able to show that. It was sad that we weren't able to finish the trial because COVID hit, and WESFIT was a face-to-face intervention. COVID hit, had to stop the trial, and patients that were on the trial were just devastated. We're going to need you now more than ever, and you're saying you can't see us. So very quickly, Sandy Jack and her team, working with Macmillan, pulled together another trial in response to COVID, which we called SafeFit. And SafeFit was based on the lines of WESFIT, but actually it was much more universal. It was still looking at people's physical fitness, their emotional health, and also their nutritional support, but it was delivered virtually. Patients could self-refer in, and they could self-refer in at any point in the diagnosis. And indeed, if it was even a suspected diagnosis. And when we set it up, we thought that at least it's something, and probably people that are well motivated and probably have quite low level need will refer themselves. Actually, that was not the case. People that referred themselves, thanks Brenda, we undertook an Macmillan health needs assessment, and very quickly we saw that people were identifying themselves as having high level need. And it was, oh my goodness, what are we going to do that? How are we going to manage this? Because they're just being seen by fitness instructors, well-trained fitness instructors who had done cancer rehabilitation courses, but not that rounded clinical or professional clinical side of need. So we worked with a couple of the clinical nurse specialists who then made contact with these patients in response to their HNAs. In the majority of cases, what happened was by the time she had contacted them, they had had 1 or 2 interventions with one of the trainers, and their perceived level of need had dropped right down. They were well motivated. They felt supported. It made all the difference. So despite not having that contact with the healthcare professionals, they were really being able to get on with stuff, and which was just so good to hear. They've stopped recruiting to SafeFit now because we wanted a fully powered trial, which was 1,100 patients, and we are virtually there. And so we will be looking at the interim analysis. But what we want to do now is to look at how we can move SafeFit, the trial, and take elements of that into a model of integrated care across Wessex. Jackie, I'll read that in a minute. I can't double task. I'm not good at multitasking at this moment in time. So what we are looking at is how we can move that, working with services out, and we cannot do that without fully engaging with primary community care, working with the wider workforce, which at the minute we're sort of calling working with social prescribers, working with fitness instructors, working with social care. So really looking at everything that is out there to be able to offer this. I then found an email across me where Macmillan are looking at a slightly different way of a funding model, looking at palliative care and end-of-life care. And we thought, wouldn't it be good if we could access some of this funding to pilot that sort of SafeFit model for patients with cancer deemed to be in the last year of life? Because I've had various conversations, and certainly with Eileen, that when people feel that they're no longer being actively treated and preferred into palliative care, often can think, this is it now, we're sort of preparing to die. And that quality of life or meaning of life and the things that Andrew was talking about and other people have mentioned today sort of disappears. But if we could engage better and make people feel supported, what a difference that could make. And if we can get it right with this cohort of patients, then it should be great for anybody diagnosed with cancer right from the beginning of the pathway. So this is why this prehabilitation pathway for palliative patients is coming. We're getting nearer and nearer to actually signing on the dotted line and getting the funding. We are looking at new titles and ways of working, and not new ways of working, sorry, but new titles, and we need to get better at actually saying what this truly means. And at the moment, I think we're going to move the working title to Fit for You because it's come out of the SafeFit, but very open to people who've got other ideas. So but we'll just move that working title for now. And really what it is, it's all about that needs-based early or preventative interventions across the pathway and supporting that clinical bit. Does that make sense? Does it sound the right way to go? I really think that a lot of this, we have talked, I've been around a long time, I'm a nurse by background, and this is the sort of conversations that we've had time and time again in different iterations. We need to work together more, we need to engage with primary care. I truly feel we are nearer achieving this now than we ever have done in the past, with all those different bits of the jigsaw coming together and people being more open to working together. I don't know that I'm getting, hopefully this is not a naivety, because as I say, I have been around a long time, but it would be great to get your thoughts. We will be building up a steering group. This has to be absolutely patient-centered and what people need. But what we're thinking is we would like to offer a menu of options for people. I mean, obviously we're moving from a prehabilitation trial, which needs to focus in very quickly on the first 3 weeks, to people who are going to be at different stages. And that last year of life, whatever around that is, it's not linear in terms of how people feel or want to engage. So we want to be offering activity, physical activity that could be face-to-face, could be virtual, could be group, but looking at what emotional support people need, and looking at what we can do at a universal level, and then looking at very clear ways that if people have more need in whichever area that is, so if they need more nutritional help, we then would refer on up to a dietitian. If it's something around psychological support, was that counselling? Is it some other form of complementary therapy, for want of a better phrase, what it is? So it's pulling it all together. Does that make sense? I am very open to comments, questions. Joy, your hand's up. Is that a new hand for me?
It actually was put up before you started to speak, Fran. It was more to do with this, a question from what was going on before. So maybe you can pick that up when you finished. But I don't want to cut across what you're talking about because it's so interesting.
Well,
Thank you.
I was probably going to sort of leave it a bit there at the minute. We haven't, because I gave an update on where we were with the prehab pathway at the last meeting. We've had Christmas, so I can't actually say very firmly now we definitely signed it off, it's all done. All I know is that everybody is really keen to move this forward. We are so lucky. It's going to be, we want this to be a whole systems approach right across Wessex, but it will start by piling it in the Hampshire hospitals area. So that would be across Winchester, Basingstoke and Andover. We are perfectly placed because you are the most, well, you are probably the only cancer service partnership that works so well with your acute trust. We don't really have that replicated across the rest of Wessex. So we've got you here. We've also got the most supportive CCG in the world ever. And I know Marianne often comes to this and they're leading on this work with us. And to have Vicki and Jana as well within clinical services. And it's great to see Paula here. I haven't seen her for ages. It just feels like a perfect storm of everything coming together.
Yeah.
And I don't want to drop it.
Absolutely. Right, Eileen, did you want to do anything, say anything?
No, just thank you so much, Fran. And I've sort of been doing,
You've been really helpful.
Just tried to do as much work to support. And I see now Martin has got his hand up. And we'll come back to you, Joy. Like I said, we did need to move on, but we will come back to you. Martin.
Yes, thank you very much, Fran. I think we in our group are a great supporter of prehab, and Jana's already spoken to us in one of her talks. Just a question, mainly to Vicki as well. Is prehab being mentioned at all at the moment at the point of diagnosis for cancer patients?
Absolutely, it is. We have in Southampton with Sandy the only professor of palliative of prehabilitation in the country. She has led. They've got a team that has led on all these trials. We do not have sustainable prehabilitation services in any of our trusts. There's the odd little isolated things happening, but not very much. With COVID, I think more than ever, it is absolutely up front and center of what we want to do, because if we don't, where surgery is perhaps being delayed, where treatments are being delayed, if we don't step in and do something at that point, people are going to become deconditioned, for the want of a better word. You know, they're not going to maintain either their physical or mental health. So we are really, really pushing this from an alliance perspective to try and get something into right from the beginning that is sustainable, that we can really push forward. So yes, and perhaps next time we can get Sandy along to perhaps talk about, you know, what her vision is going forward, whether we have hub and spoke models across the ICS where we go on it. But absolutely key, we are desperately trying to get some funding to really kickstart. I think Sandy's going to start by looking at patients in UHS, but the sooner we can get funding and work with all the organisations, we absolutely think it's key, because
I appreciate that the facilities may not be there yet, but we were talking to a man just before Christmas, newly diagnosed, been offered all sorts of different types of treatments he had to choose from, but the concept of prehabilitation hadn't been mentioned to him at all. He understood the concept of taking exercise and things after his treatment, but nothing before. So just trying to understand, you know, even if the concept was being talked about, even though the actual facilities might not be available.
It absolutely is. And I think Macmillan was great, and we sort of talked about living with and beyond cancer. But if we get it right and we get the right sort of support in at the beginning, at the point of diagnosis, you know, it should be supporting people across through treatment and carry on, not you get treated, stop, you move into rehabilitation. And I think rehab are different things. There's a slight different focus on that, and we probably and the wording's not right. We need, you know, we need more work around what language to use around it, but it's absolutely key.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you.
That was brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. If anybody has any thoughts, then please do get back to me. And if I could have a very 5-minute slot on some of the agendas going forward, because hopefully by the next one, we really will have something concrete to go with.
Okay, thank you very much, Fran.
Thank you.
Eileen and I, mic's on and mic's off. Yes, so I think that's all we have for today, but just today was just so interesting, and we always gain so much from these. So we've already got a couple of things on the agenda for the next bi-monthly, which is March. So if there's anything specifically you want to hear about or you want to talk about, then do get in touch with us. We've got a little while now to get an agenda together, and I'd like to say all of you have come today. Hope to see you again next time. It's just lovely to have so many faces and so much input from you all. Is there anybody that wants to say anything before we go? Is there any support groups that just want to?
Can we go to Joy, Frankie, please?
Sorry?
Can we go to Joy, please?
Oh, right, okay. Joy, thank you, Eileen.
I was really interested in so many of your talks with the therapies, etc. My question is, we're talking about the pain and the stress, etc. Now, are any of these open for partners? I lost my daughter to breast cancer, and lots of the areas you talked about, I could have really valued. I don't know whether that is something that you look to or not.
So
I think Phil wants to come in on that.
I was going to say, who would like to answer that? Yeah.
Sorry, hi Joy. At Wessex Cancer Trust, we don't just support patients, but we also support family too. So any children from 12 years old, any family member, because we always say it's like a stone being thrown in a pond, the ripples affect everyone. So if ever you want support and you know, we support anyone wherever they are in the journey. So that can be from, you know, new diagnosis, end of life, bereavement. We're there for you. We've got the centres, Chandlersford, Hythe, Newport on the Isle of Wight and Bournemouth. If ever you wanted any support, all it would take is a quick phone call to me, quick appointment, and you'll get offered quite a few sessions that would probably be quite surprising for you. But it's all led by you as well, at your speed, and you control everything that you want to access as well. So I'll be more than happy to have a chat with you if you'd like.
Thank you. The other reason is I've got a very close girlfriend whose husband's just been diagnosed with cancer, and she is really in a bad way at the moment.
And again, yeah, we'll be more than happy. Anybody within the Wessex region, so anywhere, Hampshire, Dorset, the Isle of Wight and Wiltshire, wherever they live, we'd be more than happy to support them. So I can get my email across to you if you like, or telephone number, what is either easier.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Angela.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. In the past, a lot of ladies have said about their husbands finding it difficult. They just don't want to talk about it, and therefore that doesn't help the lady, because when they want to start to talk about it, the husband sort of says, "Look, you're going to the hospital. You're having your treatment. No, just don't worry. Don't worry about it." So I think it is a thing that is really needed. But again, it comes down to the husband acknowledging that he perhaps, you know, does need help, and he ergo could therefore help his wife. So it's something that it's an ongoing thing. Yeah.
And I think if I can just say that there are a couple on the call today. So Sarah's here from James Garth House. I think Fiona was on earlier from Victoria's Promise. And we've got the 5K Your Way and Pink Place as well. So they all offer different services. So we'll put the web links in the minutes of their web addresses, so you can have a look, see what services that they can offer you.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to go through today? No? Do you want to say anything, Eileen?
No, it's fine. Just thank you very much for everybody's contribution.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay,
thank you.
Bye, everybody, and
bye.
See you in a couple of months.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.